Hello, everyone, and welcome to another broadcast of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. I am Rick Weaver, your host. Tonight, as always, Mr. Blake Duckworth is with me. Uh, say howdy to everyone, Blake.
How's it going, everybody?
We're waiting on our guest for tonight, Mr. Chris. He hadn't come on yet, but Blake and I are going to try to keep you entertained and talk about Sasquatch until Chris gets here. Blake, you want to go ahead and open the show, bud? There's
How's
Chris.
everyone? How's everyone doing tonight? As always, guys, thank you so much for your support. If you don't mind, like I say every week, hit the subscribe button, bell notification, like, and a comment. Uh, Helps YouTube let them know that you like our content, and maybe I noticed that our stuff's actually being recommended if you type in North Georgia Bigfoot now, so that's a move in the right direction. Um, but thank you guys so much as always.
Hey, Chris, buddy, how's it going?
Can't hear you, brother.
Can't hear you.
You you might have to go into your can you hear me? Okay. Go. Do you see a button that says cam and mic? Click on it. Go in there. It should have an audio thing. Go in there to the audio. Um, and you should have mic. It should say mic. Then it has a little push tab. Go in there and see if it select your headset.
Chris, we're still not getting your audio, bud. Hey, Blake, you cut out there a minute ago. Tell Chris that again about the audio.
Um, click. Did you click on the mic setting? If you can hear me, nod.
How about now?
There
Okay,
we
we
go.
got you, bud.
You got me now?
We got you now.
Great.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. I just probably had to come off the front porch because I can smell the bears out right now. I swear, man, it's they are here, big time.
Chris, what we normally do is we let you tell a short bio about yourself, and then just the floor is yours. Just explain to our viewers how you become interested in Sasquatch research, what you do as far as research, or what you know got you to believing that these creatures actually exist.
Okay. Well, of course, my name is Chris, and I am in the academia field. I'm a professor. But I'm not. I wouldn't necessarily ever say that I'm a researcher. I don't have the bravery to even go into researching. When I actually when I tried to find out these things, I mean about these beings myself, I guess you could say I was kind of researching it myself, but I definitely do not go out in the woods by myself looking for this. I don't do that anymore. Until I found out the truth, I just don't. I don't mess with it. I kind of let these beings be themselves. I just had a hell of an experience with them, and and that's pretty much it. As a matter of fact, I did not actually believe in them. You know, I believed in Patterson. For some reason or another, when I was younger, I saw this film, and I'm thinking, okay, this is just one film. This is just one rare opportunity that an ape, existed like that.
Well, you would be surprised of how many people the Patterson Gimlin film actually intrigued into, especially when the Patterson Gimlin film come out. There's so many people, that's what got them even interested in the
Right,
subject of Bigfoot. And
right.
even to this day, that film itself intrigues so many people. It's the most famous video evidence even still to this day.
And the thing is that when I saw that Patterson, I was just a kid, man. And there I was thinking that this is just one being. This is just one
Yeah.
monk. This is an ape. This is just one thing. You never really think that there's a family.
You never think they're in your backyard, possibly, too. I mean,
Yes, yes. My wife is a biologist, and we used to joke around about this. And I used to tell her, I just don't believe this. And it's just so happened that I came across a few things, and God knows that led down a rabbit hole of understanding a little bit about what I saw, what we saw, and what we've experienced. As a matter of fact, for about a year, we were terrified. But they never did anything to us. They never harmed us in any way. It's just that, seeing footprints in your backyard. I don't know. Do you guys want me to start?
yeah, go ahead. Share the whole experience of, what opened your eyes and, made you a believer.
Well, my wife and I, we were moving from Lake Lanier. We were moving, huge move from a house. And so one morning, man, I couldn't sleep, and I went walking about 4:30. Long story short, the fog was so deep when I went walking, and this is a suburb area. It just had patches of woods connected to different patches of woods. And I heard this. I was walking through this fog, man, and it's almost like a book. There was this huge knock. And at the time, of course, I didn't believe in the Sasquatch. I didn't believe it. And when I heard this huge knock, I was like, oh my God, are you serious? It was almost like you knew what it was. 4:30 in the morning. And I still didn't think anything about it. I got home. My wife was up. It was still before nightfall. Sun up. And I went looking out and said, I'm going to try to see if I can find out something. I didn't know what the hell I was looking for, man. I didn't know. Didn't find anything. Long story short, I started seeing these wood structures around the home. And long story short, I ended up running across a huge footprint. And I like to have freaked out, man. As a matter of fact, the footprint had stumped over a pine tree, a small pine tree. And I called my wife from the woods, and she was like, "Stop looking, stop looking." And that's when I started really going into the woods by myself. And it got to the point where I'll just go ahead and say this. I spoke to Dr. Ketchum. I sent Dr. Meldrum the pictures of footprints. He even was like, at one point, like, "Where'd you get this picture from?" And I'm like, "I took it myself." And so that kind of led down, a rabbit hole of experiencing the whole Sasquatch thing. And eventually it led into my wife and I running into one after we followed some footprints. I mean, it was actually, we messed up. I messed up. We were, okay, one day it was raining, and I showed her these little wood structures. And we went home, and we were like, "You know what? We got to go take pictures of this." And we put on our boots and everything, and we went back, and we ran into these baby footprints. And when we got to the point where we were following the footprints, it kind of led us to a ravine. The ravine was pretty steep, very, very, very steep. And I remember going back towards the woods, and I looked up, and I was like, "Oh my God, we can get ambushed by something," because it was pretty high up. And my wife was leading us off, and she wasn't thinking about anything like that. And then we got close to these other baby footprints, and before you knew it, man, this thing came out of nowhere, and it scared the living daylights out of us. It was so loud that you can feel like it bellowed or screamed or yelled so loudly that you can feel it within yourself. You can feel it. You can feel it vibrating. And she turned and ran. At the time, my knee was hurting, and I was looking at, and honestly, I think this being was right in front of us. Well, it was in front of us. We just didn't have the trained eye to see it. And we turned and we ran. And from then on, it took my wife probably about a week to get off the couch, man, after that day. And it took her probably a couple of years to go back into the woods. I stopped going. Well, actually, I called some tribal leaders. I can't think of who I talked to that day. And they were like, well, the young lady was like, "We'll take some bread, down and apologize." I'm like, "Are you serious? Are you serious?" And so the next day, sure enough, it was raining, and I got some cinnamon rolls and went to the store and bought all this and this and that, the cinnamon rolls. And I put on my backpack, put on my hiking boots, and I hiked right back down to the ravine. And I tell you, that was probably one of the most terrifying moments that I've had, because you can hear footprints. It was almost like they mimicked me as I was walking straight down into the ravine. And when you walk down to the ravine, you can actually see baby prints. You can see the baby prints. They were from, I can't really say juvenile to, I mean, infants. And it was almost like they had been playing in a creek. And I left the bread there, and that was the last time I went into the woods by myself. But there were a ton of things that happened in between all of this. And
Now, I've got a couple.
Go
I've got
ahead.
a couple questions.
Uh-huh.
So how far are you guys when you were living in the area from Lake Lanier?
How far we were from where?
Lake Lanier. Like, what did you guys like? A couple miles from the lake, or?
No, we stayed actually on the lake.
Okay.
And I think that I don't even think, but I think these beings had already been there because we had a compost pile. Because we fished a whole lot and we caught really big catfish. One thing that we noticed was that every time we clean the catfish, you know, the guts are gone. It could have either been a fox, it could have been anything, but and we had, of course, our kids are grown now, but we tossed out food. It always ended up that the compost pile was clean, and we had no idea what we were doing. It just so happened.
You were pretty much gifting them at that point. I mean,
Yes.
The reason I'm asking about the whole Lake Lanier scenario and everything, because we're from North Georgia, of course, so we're not too far from Lake Lanier. And actually, what got me into the subject of Bigfoot and actually leading into my personal sighting was at Lake Allatoona. So, not too far from a Lake Lanier, about 30 mile, 40 mile, radius.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, a lot of people don't realize, don't think about these metropolitan areas.
Right. And that's the one thing that kind of surprised me, because it didn't matter if you lived in a suburban area, as long as there's a patch of woods that connects to another patch of woods
with food source and water.
Yep. Food source and water, they are there. And I just did not believe it. I did not believe it until I just started running across footprint after footprint. It's kind of hard to explain, and people don't get it. That's why when people say that they are researching and they're out there looking, I tell them, don't do this by yourself. I even, to be honest with you, Dr. Ketchum and I had gotten into an argument about this because I was scared as hell. Because I was like, I messed up one time and went to a place where there was a blind that I think that, well, I'm guessing that's what it was. A blind where they hunted deer. And they hunt deer. And I ended up, when we got out of the truck, I could smell this terrible smell of something death. And so I went back home. My wife had watered the flowers, and we had just moved. We had gotten to move on from lake. And she walked off somewhere, went around the block to walk, and I went in. I don't know if I went in and grabbed a beer or something like that. And I came back, and there were footprints all over the back deck. And I freaked out. And I called everybody that I possibly could to find out how to handle this. And the first thing they told me was stop looking at them, stop going looking for them, stop doing this. And I had been told and had been warned that if you keep following them, they're going to come to your park. They're going to come to your place. They're going to find out. I was like, no way, man. There's no way. And for sure, they footprints we would wake up after it rained the next morning, see footprints all over the backyard. And I stopped taking pictures of them. I stopped taking pictures of it. And it taught me a lesson. Respect them. You have to respect their space. And it's nothing to really play with. Nothing to play with. I don't know what they are. But I do know once I start giving them that space and allowing them, well, not even allowing them, because they're going to do what they want to do. Just giving them room and not trying to take pictures of them, not trying to seek them out. Things kind of cooled off a little bit. And I don't know if I think they're migrative. Because they cut down a lot of trees down in Beaufort, near the lake. It was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres. That's where Amazon, they moved the building Amazon there. And then they widened the highways and everything. And we just stopped seeing signs of them.
Well, that's kind of what, I was talking about Alatina Lake. That's kind of what's happened down there around where we actually, me and Ricky both, kind of started our journey that we're in now back in 2011 is we've always had the theory that they do migrate to a certain extent. Not so much. I guess the reason being in that area is certain time of the years we would have more activity than other time of the year, but you're also in a wildlife management area. Right. So, there's really no point to leave. I mean, you've always got food source, you got water, you got all the deer you want. So there's no really, reason to leave. But kind of the same things happen down there. Over the last couple of years, they've been cutting down a lot of trees down there. And we still visit the area. We still visit the area to do research. And it seems just like the more they cut down, the less we're having activity down there. I mean, especially over this last year, I mean, we really haven't had much happen since they really started clearing the area out down there. So, and that's the thing is I think that's one reason that you do start to have more sightings sometimes is we're invading their territory. Right. When we're cutting down trees, we're forcing them to move. So, the less wood you have in an area, the more chances are they're going to have an encounter with a human. Right.
I mean, honestly, we decided, I don't know how in the world, don't ask me this, but my wife found a cabin here close to the National Forest, and we had always wanted to move to a cabin because we've always loved,
wilderness.
Yeah. And she was like, well, what do you think about moving here? I said, well, we just can't let this all stop us from enjoying our lives. And we ended up moving close. Our property now runs next to a national forest. And we have had, honestly, things became so basic to us that we didn't worry about it anymore.
It's just everyday life.
Say it again?
It's just everyday life at that point.
Yes. It became, but one day we went walking in a part of the mountain that it kind of freaked me out because we ran across a family of footprints. And my wife she had gotten used to this, man. But personally, it just brought back memories. It just brought back.
How does your wife feel about the situation? I mean, is she a believer now? Is she, how does she view the subject?
Oh yes, she was always a believer. But with her running into that day when we were growled at, whatever you want to say.
It's scary.
It's scared to, if I don't want to cuss or anything like that, but it's scared the living shit out of her. And it took her a while to even get back into getting into the woods, and it took me a while to get back into it. And I mean, we've pulled up in the parking lot and seen footprints in the parking lot, and next thing you know, we hear a wood knock, and you're like, oh, whatever, man. You know, it is what it is. You know, what can you do about it?
Yeah, just don't pay them no attention.
You know, it's just it is what it is. You know, I go over to the creek next on the lower level of our property, and you see a footprint or two, and it's like, what are you gonna do? They're here. They're here.
Well, you're in there. You know, you moved into their territory. I mean, they were there first. You've got to coexist.
Yes, yes. You know, and so we kind of pretty much try to leave them alone. I just dread the day that I run across one face to face, and I see it. I actually can see it. I just dread that time that's going to happen, because I do ride around the mountains a lot. I know that they're there. Even when I'm walking the puppy, you can tell.
I can tell you from my personal experience, it's one thing to have experiences as far as footprints and hearing them and everything, but the day that you physically see one,
Yes,
it will forever change your life.
it changes. I mean, even the charge. I don't know if you want to call it a charge or ground or whatever. That changed everything. I just remember one time that there was, okay, I'll just say this. There was an X on one side of the highway going up 985. And I pulled over, I stopped the car, got out, and then I looked across the highway, and there was another X that was across the highway. And I'm thinking to myself, this is some kind of crossing. This is some kind of direction thing, something.
Some type of marker, yes.
Yes. And
that's the thing about even structures, tree breaks, stuff like that. We don't know what they mean.
Right.
People have theories on them, but they mean something.
They mean something. And I ended up going to that area several times, and I remember going down into this area, and I heard these whistles, and I'm like, that is tremendously loud. And so I turned around and was, trying to leave. And next thing you know, I'm hearing these footprints behind me. And I tried to get the hell out of there. And as soon as I got to the edge of the woods, getting back to the truck, the Jeep, there was these footprints. I was so scared that I heard these footprints behind me, and I wouldn't even turn around and look. So over time, I just stopped looking for them. Well, sometimes you just can't help it. Apparently, they know when you know.
Yeah.
They know when you know that they're there. I don't mess with the tree structures. I don't do anything. When I see them, I just see them. And I don't talk to Ketchum or Meldrum or anything like that like I used to, because it was just one of those things. I was just being hard-headed and didn't listen to them. I just did not, especially Dr. Ketchum. I didn't listen to her. I should have.
Well, you get consumed. It consumes your curiosity. I mean, you can't help but, old saying, curiosity killed the cat.
Yes.
I mean, unfortunately, that's it is what it is. I mean, you can't help but want answers.
Right. I mean, we've experienced so much, especially with the owl calls. I mean, my wife got me up one morning. It was early morning, about 3 o'clock, and she was like, "Come look at this. Come listen to this." And we were listening to these owl calls, and we know we've been raised in the woods. I was like, "That is not an owl," and she's like, "Nope."
We've experienced. I'm sure you're familiar with Blue Ridge, being from Georgia.
Yes.
We were over in the Blue Ridge management area back last year, and I think it was March, and we were up on top of the mountain. We were about 14 miles off the main road, and me and Ricky experienced something like that. I mean, it was owl. It sounded like an owl call. But I mean, this owl had to be 1,000 pounds. I mean, you could, we've heard barred owls. I mean, we know what they sound like. This sounded like one. Just the vocal, the vocal range was not an owl. I mean, there's no possible way. Because if I seen that owl, that I wouldn't want to see it. That's a big owl if it was an owl.
Exactly. We sat on the front porch here, and it was almost like you can almost imagine what was happening, because you can't see. We don't have any street lights, and you can hear this owl, and you're like, that is not an owl. And it just went wild. But I mean, I can go on and on and on about the experience that we've had. I just when people tell me that these things are friendly, I find that, I don't know. They haven't done anything to us.
And that's kind of how I feel about it. I think it's one of those things, you leave them alone, they may leave you alone. I think, they try to coexist to a certain extent, like we try to coexist with them when they're real. But there are so many variables that, whether if they're young in the area, I think a lot of times when people have negative experiences, there are young involved that the person don't see. Every animal, every being, we protect our young. It's just a natural instinct. And I think it's kind of like humans to a certain extent. You've got nice ones, you've got angry ones. You don't, one may be having a bad day when you come across them. I mean, you don't know. I mean, that's the thing. You don't know the type of encounter you're going to have when you do, if you was to come face to face with one.
That's one of the lessons that I've learned. If you see baby prints, if you come between one and a baby, leave that alone. Leave it alone. Even now, when I look back at it, that day that we were growled at or charged at or whatever it was, it's kind of scary, because whatever it was probably could have torn us up. And I just would not follow baby prints. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't follow any of the footprints. I ran across some baby prints about 2 weeks ago, and nope, I don't have no reason to go look for that, none whatsoever, because these things are serious, and they're not apes. They are beings. They are human. And I don't know I don't know the mixture or whatever it is that's in them, but they are highly, highly stealth, highly intelligent.
Well, no matter what you believe or how, because there's so many theories of what they are. There's no denying that they have to be some type of hybrid.
Yes. Who knows what they are? I just know
Chris,
my.
as far as the intelligence of these creatures possess, I spoke with a man a few years ago and he told me that he at the time was frequenting a state park up in Tennessee, and he said that he'd been going in and out of the park up there for a few weeks, and he would have to park his vehicle in the parking area and walk in about a mile to where he camped at. All right. Now, to tell you that the intelligence that these creatures possess, he said that he had been getting rocks thrown at him every Friday night when he'd go in there and set his camp up about 10:30, 11 o'clock. These things would start throwing rocks. All right. He said that he'd done this for quite a few weeks there, and he decided one weekend he would go to Walmart and he went and got a basket of tennis balls. Took those in with him the next Friday night when he went up there. He said these things, again, about 10:30, 11 o'clock, started throwing rocks. Okay. He said when he went in, there was like 15 vehicles parked in this parking area where he had to park at. Well, he started throwing these tennis balls up into the woods when they started throwing rocks at him. And he said he could hear them actually chasing back and forth through the woods after these tennis balls. Well, he said after everything settled down, an hour or two, he really didn't think anything about it, went to bed, got up the next day, got his stuff together, came back out now to his vehicle. All these other vehicles still parked around his, but all these tennis balls, every one of them he said that he had thrown the night before, was lined up across the hood of his vehicle.
Wow.
So now you tell me what type of intelligence these creatures have.
I couldn't even begin to tell you. Honestly, I don't even play with them like that. I don't even play with them like that. I don't even try to gift. I don't do anything like that. The only thing that, like, if I post something in the Georgia Sasquatch thing, it's something that I've just seen. Where I take pictures of it and I'll just say, okay, hey, and making sure that people understood that these things are real. And I don't even call them Bigfoot anymore, because that brings the myth into the picture. I call them a Sasquatch. I call them Tukadika. That's usually the goat eater, the sheep eater, the deer eater. But
Now,
no, I don't.
I've got to ask, Chris, do you have Native American in you?
Oh yes, definitely.
Okay, I figured. So I mean, I'm sure that you've heard a lot of stories from your ancestors and stuff of, what their outlook on the subject.
Yes. And it's kind of hard for some natives to even talk about it. A lot of them won't talk about it. As a matter of fact, I had called, I don't know how many tribes, I don't know how many times I've called them and was turned away from them telling me the truth. And but I finally found some that would be honest. And they have real names for these beings. I can't pronounce them. But you have to realize this yourself. And people say they want to see these things, they want to experience that. And I just tell them all the time, I'm like, I don't know about all of that. I had one guy that wanted me to take him out to experience this. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Because for some odd reason, it's easy for me to figure out where they are. And I just tend to just leave them alone.
I mean, you think it may be because, they know that you are Native American?
Yes, definitely. It took me a minute to realize this. And especially, this may sound kind of crazy, but I'm sorry, that's the puppy. I have O
Sounds
blood.
like you got Sasquatch in there with you.
I have old blood, and they were telling me, that's what they know, that you are native. And I'm like, man, I don't. It was just experience, and I have been told several times. As a matter of fact, I was going to fly out to this area, and I was going to meet with Ketchum and a few of the other people, and I just realized, man, I didn't necessarily have to go anywhere. These things are in your backyard. They're in your backyard. They are around your area. If you have a compost, get rid of it. If you feed your dogs outside, get rid of the dog food and feed them inside. Any food source that you have around the house, they will find it. But yes, and I think, like you said, Blake, that with me being native, they knew that I was native. They know that I'm native. And it took me.
In my opinion, just what your Native Americans do talk about when it comes to the subject. That is one of the biggest supporter of the legend of Bigfoot or legend of Sasquatch. The Native Americans, the stories, the history with Bigfoot or Sasquatch and the Native Americans, in my opinion, is one of the biggest supporters of the subject.
Right.
Your Native Americans have more stories and more interaction than anything in history.
Anything. And also the natives that are around the mountain right now, if you just were to ask them certain questions, they'll tell you. I mean, my neighbor, they have told me over and over. These are mountain men that have hunted these mountains since I was even born. And they said that they've heard sound. I had one neighbor told me that they stayed in a patch of the woods that about 100 acres. He said one night it got so loud that he had to get in a tub and go to sleep because of the sound. And we were like, what are you not saying to us? But they are here. They are here. And if you just ask people the right amount of questions,
you'll find out a lot of things. I cannot tell you how many just random people that we have come across that, just us being out in the field, because we do a lot of research, and we come across people, for example, we had broke down over at one place we do research at, and we just stopped at a random house. Couldn't have been, of course, there weren't many houses over there, but it was the only one that had lights on, so we went to it. It was like it was 1 o'clock in the morning. We're knocking on. We're out in the woods. Like we're from the country, so we don't typically knock on people's doors at 1 o'clock in the morning.
No,
I mean that's something that I don't really advise unless it's a have-to situation. So, they come to the door. We're talking to them, and we didn't have service. So luckily they had, they have service because they use a different provider or whatever. So they let us use a phone. And the guy's out there with us, and we're just sitting there talking. And, instead of just being these creepy people knocking on your door at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm honest with him. I never know somebody's reaction when I tell them what we're doing, but I would rather them think we're crazy than up to no good. Right. So, I tell him, I was like, we're over here doing some research, Bigfoot hunting. Thinking this guy's going to call us crazy. No. Then he goes on to tell us that he's got trail cam photos of them. This guy, he ran there where we're at used to be a Boy Scout and Girl Scout camp. And he's like the maintenance person of the land now, the that's closed down, of course, but he's like the maintenance guy. And he's like, I've been here 14 months and I've never had the stuff happen to me that I've had to happen over here. So just you never know. Like so many people have experiences that you never hear about.
Right, right. And you have to ask them. I ask them on the sly, because I just want to know what people have experienced. But if you ask some of these mountain people what have they experienced, they will tell you that some of them will say, well, I don't know if I believe in it or not, but I know that I've heard this and that. I know if there was going to be a Bigfoot.
And even if they haven't, they know somebody has.
Yes. Yes. And I don't know if this is all the truth that's starting to come out right now. I don't know. But I'm starting to see a lot more people admit to it than
well, it's not so much a woo subject now. I mean, it's become more accepted. Like when the Patterson Gimlin film came out, that was in a time where if you talked about Bigfoot, you were crazy.
Yeah.
Nowadays, and it's not necessarily a positive thing because it's enabled a lot of things with social media and the internet and TV shows and stuff like that. But people have become more used to the subject of Bigfoot. It's enabled a lot of hoaxing and a lot of dishonesty, and it's enabled good things and it's enabled bad things, because now you have people that just look at you like you're crazy, in which you always will, but then you have a lot more people that are accepting of the subject.
Right. I mean, the experience that we have, I would sit down and talk to my oldest sister, my oldest brother about it, and they were like, yeah. But this is the thing. I would say, well, why don't we go, out into the woods? And the minute I say that, they're like, no, that's okay. It never fails when you tell them, you know what, let me just show you some things. They're like, nope, that's okay. That's okay. And I honestly, right now, my whole thing right now is not trying to prove it. My whole thing is just
honestly though, it does no good in today's world to try to prove it.
No, it doesn't.
Because even if you get the holy grail of evidence, I mean, it could be the best video, whatever, it's always going to get shot down. Always
going to get shot down. And that's where you can, like, if you could. I was watching Jaws the other day, and the guy had a picture of the shark's eye, and you can tell it was a shark. Of course, it's a movie. And people still wouldn't believe him, and there are some photos out there that you really don't know if these are real or not, but if they are real, people are still not going to believe you.
And that's why, when I was talking about the social media and everything, that's enabled a lot of hoaxing.
Yes.
And when you have a lot of hoaxing, the non-believers and even believers will discredit things because of the dishonesty of other people.
Right. And I don't know what this thing is about. We got to be the first to see, the first to make a believer out of someone, and people say, well, we need a body. No, you don't.
I'm a firm believer they've been bodies found. I mean, you can't tell me after all these years that they've not been a body come up. I mean, they've had to been. I mean, I don't care how good and what you believe they do with their dead and if they bury them, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
They've been a body.
And and you could talk to DNR all day long, and they're never going to tell you the truth. I mean, my wife and I, we found cougar tracks up here in the mountains, and there was one catch. Like, I'm like, good God, what kind of cat is this? You know, and they'll still tell you, oh, they're not here. That's bullshit. I mean, excuse me.
No, you're good. You
That's
express your opinion.
Chris, I like to say, bud, I'm a retired professional taxidermist here in the state of Georgia. I ran studio for over 20 years, and I can tell you up front, I've dealt with DNR left and right over the years concerning the validity of these big cats and other creatures that have been actually caught and brought into my shop over the years. And you're right; they tell you you're crazy.
they tell you
Well,
crazy.
me personally, I've seen a black panther right here in my yard.
Wow,
We're not supposed to have black panthers.
wow.
Right, I actually saw one back in the early '80s. Me and my ex-wife, we'd been over to her mother's and picked my son up one night about 10:30. Turned through a dirt road. Uh, Turned through a dirt road going back over to the house, and there was one laying right in the middle of the dirt road. This thing sprung up on all 4 feet. Body wise, it was about probably 5.5, 6 foot long. The tail was as long as the body was, jet black with emerald green eyes. This thing turned, made one bound, was on the side. It was right in the middle of the road. It made one bound, was on the ditch line, and then going into the woods, and that was it. I mean, this thing was as quick as anything I'd ever seen.
I mean, and they'll tell
Same
you,
way, guys. Blake, go ahead, continue. Let me get.
So, like, when I seen the black panther here at my house, they had been talking of one in the area, and Ricky's son had actually seen it about a month or a couple weeks before I'd actually got a visual of it. So my driveway, it goes uphill when you first. It's pretty steep hill, so when you first turn on it, it goes pretty much straight up. I didn't see the full body, but I got a look at it at the rear half of it as it was walking across my driveway into the woods. And what I saw was like Ricky described, jet black. You could tell it was feline. It had a tail as long as the body. I mean, there are no other things walking around here that are a cat that big.
yes, yes, and you could hear them at nighttime, man. This is, I mean, okay, of course, bobcats sound all kind of ways, but there are some big cats in these mountains, and I guess if they admitted it, you're gonna lose the people that come and tour the place.
And it's just like me talking about Bigfoot and we were talking about migration and being pushed out of areas and stuff. It happens with all animals.
Yes.
We're more we're building, the more we're intruding on land. These animals are forced to go other places.
Yes.
And it's just what's going to happen. I mean, I didn't know we had moose close to us, or elk. I didn't know we had elk close to us. I didn't know they were elk in Tennessee.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the Big Frog Mountain Range up in Tennessee, eastern Tennessee has a abundance of elk. Now they started a restocking program. The federal government did with the Forestry Service back in the early 1980s, and I had a brother-in-law that actually retired from the Forestry Service after about 50 years, who passed away back in January of this year from COVID. But he had told me all about the stocking program that had started up there, and also on the gray wolves that we have in this area now.
Yes.
And, people don't realize, even the coyotes. The coyotes, back when I was a young man back in the early 60s, there was no coyotes whatsoever in this part of the country. Coyotes were brought in by the Federal Forestry Service to help control the rodent population in the state of Georgia. And those things have just blossomed from the 1960s to we're being overrun with coyotes in this area today. Same way with armadillos. Armadillos, I used to see them in South Georgia deer hunting, and now, matter of fact, down here on Redbud Road, 2 miles from where I live at, I saw one on the side of the road the other day that had been hit by a car. So these things, as Blake says, as they lose their territory, they start moving out into different territories and branching out, and uh, they're actually taking over the whole state now.
It was a couple of weeks ago that I was turning into our road, and I thought these were coyotes running across the hill, but two of them made their way up the mountain, straight the hell up this mountain, and they looked like red wolves. And I told my wife, I said, I don't know what in the world that was. But I sat there and I pulled the car over and I looked at them and they were just looking down at me like, hey, man, this is our place, And I'm thinking, these are red wolves. These are wolves. They're here. They're here. You can't deny that. No, I couldn't make that up if I wanted to. And every time I'm going walking the dogs, I got to arm myself because these things are there. Like you said, I mean, they are here. But people,
it's also like alligators. That I don't believe that we have a lot here, but I mean, DNR, I don't care what anybody says, DNR has found alligators in our area. It's a given thing. Things will eventually end up places they're not supposed to be. I mean, look at all the pythons.
That goes back to
look how the python or the big snakes in Florida, that didn't used to be a thing. Eventually, I'm a firm believer they're going to end up places like here. I mean, things move, things migrate. I mean, all because our wildlife management doesn't acknowledge it, doesn't mean that things can go where they want to go.
They go where they want to go.
They're nothing saying that, hey, you can't go across that state line. I mean,
yes, and there's a lot of woods here. There's a lot of woods here. I mean, I remember one time my wife and I went fishing and we caught an alligator snapping turtle. I actually hooked it because I saw it catch a catfish and I just took off the rubber worm and I kept tossing it out there until I could hit it. And that thing was huge, man. It was huge. And I called DNR and I told them it broke my rod. And I called DNR. They were like, no, this is not existing. I'm like, man, are you serious? But again, they're not going to tell you the truth about it. They're not going to do that. And I think that's just a part of the whole plan. They're not going to tell us the truth about it.
Well, the government only tells us what they want us to know. I mean, that's everything in life. That's where we're taught to believe certain things and we're taught what we're supposed to know from a young age.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. But again, back to the Sasquatch, I admire you all being out there, but I wouldn't go out looking for them, man.
Well, Chris, I had my first encounter back in 1981 on a small creek from about 10 miles from where I live here now. I actually saw one at about 40 yards. This thing, when I first saw it, we were in a two-man raft floating the creek fishing. We came across a waterfall, came down the creek. The creek went to the right. There was another small creek, little skewer corn that ran in on our left side. A big sandbar came out from where the little skewer corn ran into the main body of Talking Rock. And this thing was right on the end of that, right on the point of that sandbar, crouched over like a man crouched over. Well, when I first saw it, I thought it was a bear. Well, this thing had its hands, or its paws, what I thought was bear paws down in the water. And as we got closer to it, it raised up. Well, when its hands come up out of the water, it was two human-like hands covered with hair on the backs of them down to about the middle knuckle, but about twice the size of mine. This thing was probably 6.5 foot tall, weighed probably 450 pounds, covered with hair from the top of its head to the bottom of its feet. It
Wow.
threw its head back when it saw us, or winded us, I guess you'd say, because it kind of threw its head back, sniffed the air. Wood line about 40 yards behind it. This thing turned and made two leaps and was into the woods and gone. And this transpired in maybe 10 to 20 seconds. And that is what changed my life and what got me into doing Sasquatch research. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Uh, I'm hooked on it. I'll do it until I'm dead, I guess, until they shovel dirt in my face. But mainly
I,
the reason mainly the reason Blake and I do this show is to educate people, to give them
Mhm.
the knowledge to deal with these creatures if they run up on them while out in the wild.
Well,
And
You know,
and just to give a place for people, because sometimes people just need a place to tell their stories.
you know,
No,
and
no judgment, no whatever. I mean, because you know, we have talked to people that have some crazy stories. Don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, but
yeah,
it's not our place to tell them whether if it happened or not. We're
right.
just here for them to tell whatever they want to share. I mean, and
I,
I've been me personally. I've been doing this since 2011. So I mean, going on 10 years. I mean, I don't have of course, Ricky didn't really get huge into it till about the same time I did. I mean, I'm sure, he did before, but far as like heavily into it, I would say around the same time that I got into it. I mean, we with the Alatoona Lake, we started having a lot of stuff happen down there, and that's when we really got heavy into research.
I look. I got up one morning and said maybe I should start doing a little bit of research. I said no, that's okay. I'm not doing that crap. But like I say, I admire you all for doing it. The only reason why I even post this is just like you all say. I just try to help out people. And some people will go out there by themselves and get spooked the hell out of. But I
Well,
just try to.
I'm a little like I go about research different than other people. Like, I don't push buttons. I know when enough is enough. If you get that feeling in a certain area, listen to your intuition and leave.
And leave. Exactly. Leave.
Don't overstay your welcome.
That
that's
is
it. And these things will tell you if you're welcome or not. You know, like I tell everybody, when we leave our homes and we go into the wilderness, we're in their homes. You know, they know as soon as excuse me, they know as soon as we enter the woods. You know, there's no ifs, ands, or about it. If a Sasquatch is in the area, it knows when you come into its home. It's
yeah.
basically just like Chris, just like somebody opening your front door, walking into your house. You're going to know they're there. Same
Yes.
way with a Sasquatch.
And
Yes.
When we
certain family groups are more inviting than others. I
right,
will say that from our research, the different places we've been, the different family groups that we've dealt with, you get different reactions. We've dealt with some that don't mind you being in the area. Then we've dealt with some that weren't the nicest in the world.
That I don't want to ever run across. I don't want to ever run across that again. Um, but stand up here in the mountains. They are here though. We would hear knocks all the time, and I don't even know if they use wood to do that or use their mouths to do it. I don't know. But I know that they can be loud and some can be just up front, you know. And I don't know if they use wood to hit trees. I don't know about that. I think sometimes they use their mouths, their vocal cords. I don't know. I could be wrong though.
Well, that's a good
Chris.
possibility. I mean, the vocal range that they have, I mean, they're no tell, they mimic all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, it's a good possibility. I mean, that's definitely not a theory that's discreditable. I mean,
Who knows?
Chris,
But
we've got a couple of questions here from the audience.
okay,
One of them, praying and squatching, Mr. Barry, has a question. As a professor, does the guest think mainstream academia and science will ever get their heads out of the sand on the topic of cryptozoology?
nope, they won't ever. Unfortunately, they're not. And honestly, I just sort of say the hell with it. I'm just going to go ahead and start telling the truth. I stopped being afraid to, tell the truth about what I know. But academia is never going to sit down and admit this. And there is evidence there. I mean, some of them have evidence of DNA,
Of
but
course.
they're just not going to. They're not going to admit it.
Well,
They're not
science is
going to admit it.
one-sided anyways. I mean, it's science, even which goes back to, I believe that, I'm sure a body has been tested. I'm sure that, like I said, I mean, I really think that science has a body, but for some reason, it's just a one-sided ordeal. I mean, it's really don't know how to elaborate on that, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, but science doesn't have to acknowledge something for it to exist.
And a lot of people, they're still afraid of their jobs, losing their jobs.
Yeah. Well, look
They
at
don't
what's her name? What's the famous what's her name?
catch them.
One of the most, yeah, one of the most. She was super credible and everything. Then all of a sudden she acknowledged Bigfoot, and all of a sudden it was downhill from there for her.
Yes.
Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Blah 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 blah.
Yes. Yes. And they tore her to pieces. But hey, things are going to sooner or later come out in the light. We could lie about this. We can try to cover it up. People know.
Yeah, and that's why I say we don't need science to tell us that that it exists.
Right. Right. Even with Meldrum, he kind of beats around the bush a little bit, and he plays the fence a little bit. But he knows some things. Ketchum, I think Ketchum has a lot of information that people, for some odd reason, they won't listen to her. I don't know.
But yeah, she was the go-to person for so many years.
I've got a question for you, Chris.
Uh-huh.
And this goes back to the government, to cover up of Sasquatch. Why, in your opinion, do you think that the government would suppress what they know about these creatures?
They will lose tourism. I think that they will lose tourism. Like my wife and I would sit back here.
Just general outdoor activity.
Yes, they would lose the activities here. My wife and I, we would sit up here and watch people hike through the night in these races here. And the first thing we say was, if they only knew what the hell was out there, they would not be camping and hiking through these woods at nighttime without any kind of weapon. And but people do hike at nighttime. They do have these races, these professional races, and if the government admitted that, these people would not even come up here. We talk about this all the time. I say, if they only knew what was out there, they wouldn't. If they knew, they wouldn't do what they're doing. And they would lose business.
Well, do you think that the acknowledgement of this creature would also have an impact on the nation's logging industry, not to mention other types of industry that count on the outdoors?
Oh, definitely.
But at the same time, with the logging industry, you know how many loggers actually have encounters? A lot.
A lot.
I mean,
A lot.
so that's one of those things. Like, I don't know if it really impact logging. I mean, because they already, I'm sure majority of your loggers have had some type of encounter, and they still do it.
Well, it comes down to the fact that if these creatures are ever, if the government ever acknowledged these creatures do exist, then it would be like the spotted owl out in Washington and Oregon back
It becomes
what, in the
protected.
early
It
80s.
would, yeah.
You know, what would we do? I mean, if they proved that they were real,
Then we're going and cutting down their territory, and it's going to become
Right.
a protected species and so forth.
right.
And you never know. You'll find people out there trying to hunt this thing down. You know, they'll try to hunt. You have people out here trying to hunt it down, and that's not going to happen. I can tell you that much right now. They are not going to be able to hunt these things down. But you'll get people out there trying to hunt them down.
Yeah, I don't care how good of a tracker you are.
Mm-hmm.
You can't track something that doesn't want you to know it's there. I mean, you would have people tracking them down all the time if that was the case. I mean,
right. And that's one thing that I tell people all the time. These things are highly, highly stealthy. I don't know. I think one of the most controversial things that people argue about is, do they cloak? Can they just camouflage themselves well? And I think they can just camouflage.
I think it's more camouflage than it is cloaking.
Yes.
I mean, I know some very credible people, and one of our team members, ex-military, trust every word he says. He believes he had a cloaked encounter. Is it one of those things? Is it just something we don't understand? You know, it's not so far-fetched if you look at it in an aspect of, we have other animals that we know that can camouflage and blend in with their environment. It could be as simple as answer as that.
And I mean, and also, I think you also have to have a trained eye to see these things. Like when my wife and I were charged, I believe fully that this thing was in front of us. I believe that it was right in front of us, but we just could not make out the camouflage of this thing because it was.
In a situation like that, you've got so much running through your head. You know, you didn't know what to look for.
We did not know what to look for. But when I look back at it, I'm thinking that thing was right in front of us, and we just did not have that trained eye to say, "Wow." And honestly, we didn't have time to even think about that. So you got to have a trained eye for this. And I've watched some videos of people that it seems like they do have a trained eye because they're out there all the time. But I don't even know if I want to see one. I don't even know if I want to see one. Because my wife is over there saying, "Nope, I don't want to see it." But it's just one of those things, man. I just think that everybody that I know who have seen one, it has scared the living shit out of them. They don't play around with it, and they're nervous about the woods, and a lot of them won't go in. They just won't go in. But like you guys, I mean, you got a lot of courage than I do.
Hey, we still get spooked quite a bit.
There's times that that we've had encounters that causes the hair to raise up on the back of your neck. So it's but I don't know. It's just the drive
Look,
to.
even to this day, like me and Ricky were just talking about this before we got on the show. I was looking back to when we first started doing it. I started out as a paranormal researcher before any of the Bigfoot stuff come about. And that's actually how I even had my first Bigfoot experience, was a paranormal investigating at a rural cemetery on Alatoona Lake. And I was just thinking, they were times that we would drive down to the lake. And, this road that you drive down, it's eerie anyway at night. So, I mean, like, you're already kind of freaking yourself out.
Yeah.
We've drove down there and I've not even gotten out of the car before. We make this hour drive, get down there, and just sit in the car. And that's when I first started doing it. And of course, after years of doing it, you're kind of, you get a little less fearless probably when you shouldn't, but it don't really bother me that much to nowadays. But they are times, just like we went over the night that we broke down over at John's Mountain. We were walking in on this rural lake over there, and we had something paralleling us. And I just had something telling me, hey, you're not supposed to be here. We don't need to be here. So we walked, we just turned around and walked out. You've got to listen.
Yeah,
to
we'd walked about a half a mile in, and you could hear this thing coming about 40 yards up in the woodland. Heavy footfalls the whole way. Got up there, really didn't have a lot of lights with us that night. And Blake did. Blake told me, he said, "Look, man," he said, I'm not.
I looked at Rick. I was like, I don't get freaked out like this much anymore. But something's telling me not to be here, so we left.
Right.
Something followed us all the way out. Didn't bother us. Just paralleled us in the woods. Couldn't see it, and we left. They're just. No matter how many times I'm in the woods, I grew up in the woods. I've spent my whole life in the woods, pretty much, and outdoors.
And what made us so freaky that night, Chris, is this thing followed us not only going in, but as we turned around and come back to the truck, it followed us all the way back to the truck.
That is
here in the woods there above us, and that was a freaky night.
That is probably one of the scariest moments you probably could have. The thing, knowing something is following you,
and you can't see it. That's really what freaks me out, is knowing something's there following you, but you don't know where it's at.
Right, you don't know where it's at. I remember when I first took my wife to the ravine, to this ravine, and I told her, I said, stop. And they were throwing rocks up at the thing. And I had something, they had always told me to ask for permission to go down and see them. And so I did a whistle, and they whistled back. And my wife was like, what in the hell was that? And she said, do that again. And I whistled, and sure enough, they whistled back. And I asked for permission to go down, and it was almost like these things were communicating with me. And when we got down to the ravine, of course, she started getting really, inquisitive about this cave area. And I almost had to snatch her up from, because she was looking all into this little small cave area. And I'm like, we don't need to be doing that. But the whistling, the rock throwing, all of that we've experienced. But it had gotten to the point where I guess they had gotten used to me. I don't know. But I don't know, guys. It's just one of those things where you got to know what you're looking for, and you all know what you're looking for. You know what to experience. I mean, you know what's out there.
And that's what I was talking about. Even to this day, it's not so much fear. It's just knowing when to be somewhere and not to be somewhere.
Yes.
I'm personally not scared of these beings. Like, I've never had a life-threatening experience. Don't mean that I never won't. When you put yourself out there, you always have that chance of something going wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it's not really fear. It's respect.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm fearless which I shouldn't be. I'm fearless when it comes to paranormal. I'll go do things by myself. I'll put myself in the you know, I work at one. I'm a volunteer at one of the most haunted places in the South. I work at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. So like, the paranormal don't bother me, and it's not even that Sasquatch bothers me. It's just I'm more respectful when it comes to a living, breathing creature than I am the paranormal aspect.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's, honestly, the paranoid, it never really bothered me. However, I know the Sasquatch has, the whole idea has given me PTSD at some point. It was at some point that, I could hear a crack in the woods, and next thing you know, I'm shaking or I'm looking over my shoulder. But as far as I don't even want to talk about ghosts. I don't even want to do that.
And a lot of people are the opposite because you can't see a ghost unless it's full body apparition. A lot of people would rather deal with something they can physically see than something they can't see. But I'm the opposite.
I'm not, Blake. I don't even mess with ghosts. I don't even like talking about the ghost thing, man. Because that's something that I wouldn't be able to control. And honestly, you can't control the Sasquatch either. All you can do is respect them.
Well, I guess faith kind of comes into both aspects.
Yeah. Definitely. You have any more questions, Rick? You think anybody has any more questions?
Let me see here. Trying to read the question board here, guys.
I don't want to knock out on you guys.
Oh, you're good. We're already over the hour, so
I'll fall asleep in a minute.
We typically, this is how our show goes. We get off on all kinds of random subjects.
Yes, that we do.
I guess that's a little ADHD. I mean,
that it is. Brandon Squatchin says, "See, this is my kind of professor right here. He's on the fringe and cutting edge, just like Tesla and Da Vinci. I mean that in the best possible way." That was from Barry Brandon Squatchin.
Nice, yeah.
And it is. I mean, it takes a lot of courage for a man in your position to come on and admit to actually believing in these creatures.
I mean, the thing is that I had held it back for so long, man, and to the point where I just said, forget about it. Let me just go ahead and start talking about it. People are not going to believe you, or some are going to believe you, or whatever. But I can start going into a lot of cuss words when I talk about academia.
That's what it should be about, though, because the people that believe are going to respect you, and you can't change the minds of the people that don't believe.
Right, you can't change them.
What do those people that don't believe matter, anyways?
I mean, you never know, man. I mean, you never know.
Blake, in your reference, Blake, to the paranormal, Barry commented here, I'm the opposite, Blake. Give me a flesh and blood creature or being.
Hey, that's what I say, brother. That's what I say, Barry. Most people are the opposite. Most people would rather deal with something they can see and they that knows it's alive. But
Well, guys, I've seen
I'm
this creature.
weird.
I've seen this creature up close and personal. I know that it exists. I had that encounter in '81. Then I had an encounter in '84 up on Blood Mountain in Tennessee, where a couple of guys had told me that they had been chased out of camp a few months before that deer camp up there by a shaggy, hairy-looking man. So I packed my gear up that fall and went in up there. Took my dog with me. I had about a 6-month-old blue tick. Dixie was her name, and got up there. I found the old remnants of their old camp. I set up camp right there where they had been at, and my dog loved boiled chicken. So that evening, right before dark, I had boiled her chicken breast and fed her. And I noticed while I was boiling this chicken breast, the smell, it started getting out through the woods, and I kept hearing something big and heavy out about 40, 50 yards below camp. I really didn't pay attention to it, and I crawled in my tent after dark at night. My dog laying there beside me, and along about, I guess it was about 9:30, 10 o'clock, my dog jumps. Well, she raises up, and it looked like every hair on her turned her just inside out. She started growling profusely, and next thing I know, she was out of the tent, charged down into the woods below camp, and this probably 25, 30 seconds transpired till I heard her yelp out real loud. Well, I grabbed my handgun, jump up and flashlight, and run down into the woods, and about 20, 30 yards down below the camp, I found her laying there with a broke neck. Whatever
Whoa.
this was, before I got to her, I heard this thing tear out through the woods. There was a log there about 8 to 10 inches in diameter that had fell over, and this thing had stepped on that log and snapped it like it was a toothpick.
Wow.
And I never did see it. I can't say whether it was a bear, whether it was a Sasquatch, or what. I don't know, but that was just another one of the encounters that I've
Hey,
had with this thing.
got a question. Were they cloaked maybe during your first encounter?
Wait, say that again.
Got a question from in the chats. It says, were they cloaked maybe during your first encounter?
Were they cloaked?
Cloaked,
Yeah.
during your first encounter.
I don't. I took many pictures. It's kind of hard to say, man. I don't. I think they're just. I think they're just hellified. Camouflage themselves. I think that I don't know how in the world they can do this, but you can hear just like you said, they can mimic. They can follow you in the woods, and you can hear them, but you cannot see them. Some odd reason, I don't know. I actually thought I was dealing with something alien at one point. But I think it's just they are highly skilled in camouflaging, just like any other animal that don't want to be seen.
Well, Chris, my grandfather, Alf Painter, was full-blooded Cherokee Indian. Granddad was from Fontana, North Carolina, where his family was raised there around Fontana Dam, and his aspect on this creature from just a young age or mid-young age, he told me that these creatures that they felt, his family felt that they were spiritual beings, that they were beings watchers over the woods, over the mountains. And that's all he would ever say about it. So, the spiritual aspect, could that come into play on these creatures?
I think so. I think so. It's kind of hard to explain that, but just besides the point that they haven't harmed us or anything like that, I think they are very spiritual. And let me make sure I say this correctly. I think that they are a tribe of Indians that instead of going the modern way, they went the opposite way as us. I mean, they went a different way
Well, and
than
you do have a lot of people that have had pretty close encounters. You know, not every close encounter. You know, people describe them as looking different. But,
yes,
you know, we have talked to people that say they resemble facial features look like Native American to a certain
yes,
extent.
yes, yes. I it's kind of hard to prove that, you know, just like you said, people are going to believe what they want to believe. But I really think that these are human beings that just went feral on
That
the other
didn't evolve into who we are today.
right. Exactly. Exactly. And that is from my experience. From my experience is that these are beings that just didn't go the way we went, you know?
For some reason, evolution didn't go the same way for them as it did for
Right.
us.
Right.
And
Now,
who's to say who is better off? I mean, really, you look at
right.
us.
I would say they're better off than we are at this point in life.
Well, that's
Yes,
what I'm
sir.
saying. You know, that's what I'm getting at. You know, look at what I mean. And I'm like Chris. I got to figure out how to word this. You look at the way we live. You know, and what we have to depend on to live. You know,
Hmm.
if
They just live off of what. Yep.
if our power grid went down, all the stores shut down. We had no cars. We had no way of getting gas
We would lose
for
80% of our
there.
population.
You know
Yes.
what would happen?
Yes.
And of course, you're always going to have people that survive. You've got people that are very trained and very, you know, survivalists and know how to live off the land and everything. But majority of your population nowadays can't even deal without their phone for an hour.
Can't even deal without the cell phone. And you know, you can. I'll give you one instance. We go up to the waterfall up here, and I tell my wife all the time. I said, "There are some wild people here." I mean, because at the top of the waterfall, I'm like, you know what? There's some people who live here that we don't even know about, and we could be talking about the Sasquatch. But what if the grid went down? You know, what if, you know, there's some people who even walk up here now and be like, you know, I can't stay up here. You know, this is too much in the woods.
Well, there
But
are people that don't even get out of their house to go hiking or to even walk, really. I mean, you know, it's a general population has become super lazy.
yes, yes, you know, but I think they have a whole lot more room than we do. I mean, we have our cell phones, we have lights.
We have air and heat.
Yes,
Majority of people can't even live without air and heat.
yes,
Okay?
yes, yes.
Well, guys,
And
I'm proud to say, you know, I was raised up on a farm back in the late '50s, early '60s. I was taught to grow gardens back then. I was taught to raise livestock, cure for livestock. Hell, I even used old pull plows back then. It was hitched behind mules. So I kindly know, you know, I still have that in myself to live like that if I had to, and I do think I could survive. I
There's
don't know
some
for
things I don't know, but I know how to hunt, and I know how to fish, I know how to start a fire, and I know how to make shelter. I can figure
right,
out the rest as we go. I mean,
but you would be surprised, Blake, at the majority of the population that don't even have the
no, yeah, don't
ability
even
to
know.
do
Yep,
that.
yep, yep, yep.
I
That's the
mean,
reason I say, boys, I think Sasquatch is a lot better off in the environment they live in than what we are.
yes, I think so too.
Well, they live like we did a couple hundred years ago.
Um, I think they're much better off than we are. And people say, well, where do you think they stay at? I to be honest with y'all, I think they stay on the ground.
Caves, 100%.
Because up here is like there's a ton of natural springs that are coming from underneath these hills, and I'm thinking to myself, man, these things stay underground or something like that. Because you can walk around some of this land and some of this the ground is hollow, and you're like, if you're around these woods enough, you'll know, that there's a possibility that's where they are. And I could be wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. I think they definitely, whether if all of them do or not, it makes perfect sense. A lot of your case systems, they connect some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
It's a good way to navigate without being out in the open.
Yes.
It stays the same temperature all year long. It's
yes.
Shelter. They don't have to build nothing to live there. I mean, why wouldn't they? Explaining why they wouldn't is harder than explaining why they would.
Right. That's right. Guys, I think I'm going to take it in before I knock my head on this table.
All right, Chris, buddy, we really appreciate you being on the show tonight. Anytime, man, that you want to come back, just hit me up on Messenger, and we'll be more than happy to have you back on.
Okay.
If you know of anyone else that has had encounters with these creatures that would like to come on, just tell them to hit me up. Be glad to have them. Thank you, Chris. Blake, appreciate it, buddy. I want to say thank you to all the viewers that have tuned in tonight. Blake, you want to go ahead and close out, buddy?
Yep. Thank you, Chris.
All right, man.
It was a joy talking to you tonight.
Same here, man. Same here. I'll talk to you guys later, okay?
All right, brother. You have a great evening.
All right, brother. You too. Thank you.
And as always, guys, thank you so much for your support. If you don't mind, if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, bell notification, like, and the comments. And I hope everyone has a great night.
Let me drop a little post right here. Blake, buddy, I'm gonna get off here. Everyone, thanks. God bless. Hope everyone has a safe weekend. A safe the rest of the week and weekend. Good night, everybody. Northwest Georgia Cryptics. See you next week.